prosecution of felon gangster mafiotic negroidic, the Black Frank Gelada, a gangster judge, therefore unprosecutable, the blackish, menial, negroidic in appearance and demeanor, felon, vicious, parroting puppet, ex-district attorney Nassau County, with no private law experience, detested by all factions, in spite of this, solely because of his many-year secret gangsterization and crucifixion of me, this negroidic, low, mafiotic, deadly Black Frank Gelada was then immediately and unprecedentedly and repeatedly, rapidly promoted in spite of tremendous opposition to the present position of second highest state judgeship solely through gangster computer god manipulation. As additional evidence, during the last week of my within-mentioned month-long, worse-than-a-farce Nazi court criminal trial in Nassau County Court, 1958, where dwarfed felon gangster parroting puppet rectum lapper sodomist Judge William Sullivan's ball of fat felon slut wife, she, as planned, sat in the front row, repeatedly stripping her overclothes and completely pulling up her dress and slip and pulling aside her old-fashioned pink bloomers in order to display her anus, her conch. She repeatedly gesticulated and whispered, "I'll give it to you to suck. Finish him." Her husband's dwarfed felon gangster parroting puppet rectum lapper sodomist Judge William Sullivan, flushed-faced in repeated open sodomistic displays, stuck out his tongue, wiggling it, chuckling to her. "You hangman rope gangster felon parroting puppet scum on top playboys can watch my Frankenstein eyesight television playback of this felonious lowly sodomistic display by the felon sodomist Judge William Sullivan and his lowly felon slut wife during my trial in Nassau County Court. After my worse-than-Nazi court criminal conviction, crucifixion, for years in poverty, I suffered hopeless, jobless, character assassination, and isolation in this low, deadly nigger town. I was the repeat target victim of this gangster government's gangsterization and undetectable extermination attempts to shut me up forever with my secrets. Then, in December 14th to 17th, 1965, I attempted to escape this worse mongrel gangster communist country to return to the Slovenic Polish land of my forefathers. Instead, in a gangster-staged parroting puppet deadly conspiracy, I was flown from Kennedy, New York Airport at night to a small distant St. Lawrence River estuary, snowbound small airport under the guise that I was in Warsaw, Poland. Immediately, many things proved this to me, including the two big white asbestos shingled hangars with the large Brand F Airways signs on their sidewalls, in addition to the many blurted statements I solicited from the many CIA deadly gangsters, the assassins of me, the many parroting puppets all around me. I demanded an immediate flight back to Kennedy, New York Airport. Instead, I was held captive all night later in chains. I refused both all food and requests I go to sleep. Then CIA police gangsters pretending to be Polish police with no identification beat me bloodily. Later, while my return trip 707 Boeing jet airliner was being serviced for my return trip, I quickly walked into the airplane and saw a CIA gangster with a small electric hairdryer type blower pumping deadly poison nerve gas smoke into secret compartments under the ashtrays in the arms of the chairs, where later I was ordered to sit in the airplane full of CIA underlings, passengers, my assassins, who giggled as they watched me dragged in chains by the airplane by the gangster CIA police gangsters. These deadly gangster CIA passengers, they pressed the frontal panel of the ashtrays in the seat arms to release the deadly poison nerve gas smoke. Indubitably, all of the others deadly CIA underling gangsters aboard this staged return flight, they all had taken the top secret poison nerve gas antidote pill, immuning them from the deadly poison nerve gas smoke. Deadly poison nerve gas smoke was sprayed at me from cigars, cigarettes, and even from ballpoint pens, also from the wig of a woman sitting next to me. Even the Swiss cheese type ice cubes were evaporating into poison nerve gas smoke in all of the free drinks. I got up and went to the rear of the airplane by the rear exit door with a large push-up handle. My Frankenstein brain thoughts broadcasting radio disclosed my intentions. Immediately, the loudspeakers screamed that the flight was over and that our airplane was already preparing to land at Kennedy, New York Airport. You hangman rope sneak gangster playboy scum on top know these facts are true, not only from taking part in such undetectable exterminations, but also you chicanerous, demented, felon, parroting puppet gangsters can watch my Frankenstein eyesight television playback of all these horrible, terrifying, deadly events. When I returned home, Joseph I. Deck, my only brother and deadly felon, murderer, and assassin spy agent against me for this gangster government, he beat me repeatedly, cursing me that I was not exterminated by all of the poison nerve gas smoke, and that I did the impossible in that I kept awake for 3 days and refused all food in order to prevent my sneak extermination. In accordance with the completely gangster computer god concocted and manipulated statutory laws, one of your gangster court's requisite duties is to automatically rehear my said appeal case, because it has been brought to your attention, you hangman rope gangsters, that my entire life was destroyed by you co-conspirators through the gangster government perjured and fabricated criminal conviction of me in order to fulfill the demands of your communist god, the worldwide mad deadly gangster computer god. You deadly parroting puppet felon gangsters already know that I have been and am an innocent primary victim and target for destruction and extermination because I am a menace to your gangster computer god, and that I am worse than defenseless without the gangster protection and control of the gangster Frankenstein earphone radio. I stand alone against you demented, deadly gangster parroting puppets, namely this worst gangster communist computer god-controlled gangster government. Before I'm exterminated by you hangman rope underlings, I demand a reply. October 21st, 1976. Francis E. Deck, Esquire. Addendum. I personally filed my maximum conviction appeal brief in 1961 with the chief clerk of the U.S. Supreme Court, Washington, D.C. The chief clerk, he knew me. He sneeringly grabbed my thick, strong, homemade appeal brief, and then he attempted to rip it up in desperation. The chief clerk of the U.S. Supreme Court ripped off the cover of my appeal brief. Miraculously, I stopped him without a deadly scene to me. Then, filing my ripped appeal brief, the felon, another co-conspirator with the 9 hangman rope gangster judges, the chief clerk, in cowardly fear, in staccato speech and gesticulation, he confessed to me, Mr. Deck, everyone is in on this one against you, even the Attorney General, namely Bobby Kennedy, younger than his very young brother Jack Kennedy, Kennedy then president, the Kennedy Playboys. Little fag Bobby was a felon, lowest, chicanerous, untouchable, parroting puppet gangster against worse than defenseless Mr. Francis E. Deck, Esquire. By quick questioning, and the co-conspiring felon chief clerk explained and gave me a new and special notice form for only Mr. Francis E. Deck, Esquire, which had to be mailed to the opposition, the deadly gangster district attorney, in order to prevent the dismissal of my appeal case. Leaving quickly, I noticed in the room and hall several approaching uniformed and plainclothes, beweaponed police. Later, Joseph I. Deck, my only brother, deadly villain, murderer, and secret assassin spy agent against me for this gangster government, cursed me, stating that I tricked the chief clerk of the U.S. Supreme Court and that I got out of that death trap fast. So brainwashed from birth by the computer god threshold brainwash radio, parroting puppet gangster slave, if you believe in anything, forget kneeling to abide by the high holy law long enough to say one word of pray for me, for your only hope for a future. Footnote, remember, it is gangster U.S. Supreme Court written high holy law. I'll give it to you to suck. Finish him. Chicanerously forwarded to the Bar Association Grievance Committee for prosecution of felon gangster mafiotic negroidic, the Black Frank Gelada, a gangster judge, therefore unprosecutable, the blackish menial negroidic in appearance and demeanor felon vicious parroting puppet ex-district attorney Nassau County with no private law experience, detested by all factions in spite of this solely because of his many-year secret gangsterization and crucifixion of me. This negroidic low mafiotic deadly Black Frank Gelada was then immediately and unprecedentedly and repeatedly rapidly promoted in spite of tremendous opposition to the present position of second highest state judgeship solely through gangster computer god manipulation. As additional evidence, during the last week of my within-mentioned month-long, worse than a farce Nazi court criminal trial in Nassau County Court, 1958, where dwarfed felon gangster parroting puppet rectal...
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and all that stuff. I got my coffee today. I upgraded. I've gone from store-bought coffee to which actually, now that I'm tasting it, was probably better, to Maxwell House. Oh, I thought this was gonna be fancier, a little bit fancier. No, I should have got the Folgers. That's all right. It's not so bad, I guess. So we got a lot of stuff today, a lot of stuff, and a lot of it's bad news. But so before we get into the bad news, let's I'll tell you what. There's people out there who are having a worse time of it. And so because of that, we are going to go ahead and watch just a quick video. It's a little disturbing for those of you, but I'm just trying to cheer you up. Trying to cheer you up so that you know that no matter how bad it feels right now, someone out there is having a worse day. So that's it. That's it. So I guess this happened at a protest in Bolivia. I'm not actually sure what they were protesting, but I'm sure they'll be protesting building codes now. Just another day at the college, protesting. Everything's chill. A little struggle in there. Oh shit. Doesn't seem like a big deal, and then the camera pans down. Holy shit. Holy shit. Okay. So, you might feel like you're having a bad day, but at least you haven't fallen off of what looked like a 4th story railing. Because if you do that, you're going to have a bad time. So, it could be worse. It could be worse. You could be falling 4 stories down in a Bolivian college. Or you could just live in Bolivia. So, anyway, I guess now on to the bad news. Well, I do need to mention this. And we've talked about different people on the right, and however you want to define that. I keep that definition pretty large to include, well, pretty much anyone who doesn't like trans kids or that sort of thing, right? You might know him as Gypsy Crusader on Telegram. Let's see if I can bring this up here. In fact, it's on my Telegram. A lot of the stuff, not all of it, but a lot of the stuff we're going to cover today is on my Telegram. He was raided by the FBI this morning. And it kind of goes to what I was talking about earlier. Why is it not bringing that up? About even if you're not breaking the law, they'll find something, right? And we'll go over that here in a second. So, Gypsy Crusader was raided by feds. They used fucking flashbangs. Like, they flashbanged his house. It was a no-knock warrant. And then what did they arrest him for? Owning a gun. I guess he's a felon. I didn't know that. I guess he's a felon. But like I said, they'll find something. In his case, it was owning a gun as a felon. Now it's kind of a big one, but still not something the FBI usually gets involved with, right? There's a lot of felons out there that have guns, and the FBI is not kicking their door in. So we know that it wasn't because he had a gun and he was a felon. It's because they didn't like what he was saying on the internet. And now I don't know if he's still in, if he made bail or what all is going on with that. But, this is the second high profile raid in I'd say last month or so. So let's go over what the article says. This is from a local paper. If I can find the tab. I got like 1 billion tabs open right now. Where the fuck did it go? Did I accidentally close? No, okay. All right, so this is from CBS Miami. Fort Lauderdale. Residents of a Fort Lauderdale neighborhood were awakened to the sound of explosions Tuesday morning as the FBI used flashbangs while serving a warrant at a southwest Fort Lauderdale home. Flashbangs going off about 6 a.m. We went outside to look, and there were about 20 cars. 20 cars! People everywhere, said Chase Robinson. 20 cars full of feds for doing Nazi salutes on Omegle. The FBI said Paul Miller, 32, was taken into custody and I won't do his address. I mean, it's out there, but whatever. Being convicted a felon and possession of a firearm. After his arrest, social media was abuzz. Blah, blah, blah. He used the pseudonym Gypsy Crusader, where he sometimes dressed up and made provocative comments. A check of his criminal records show his past convictions in New Jersey 12 years ago for attempted aggravated assault and drugs. So because 12 years ago, I don't know what the situation is, but probably nothing too insane. Probably nothing that Antifa doesn't do on a daily basis. And 12 years ago, he does that. And now he can't have guns. And because he says naughty things on the internet, the FBI kicked down his door. Now, this is what I was talking about with, like, when someone asked, like, if I was going to grow pot, right? And I said no. Well, first of all, I don't like not smoke pot. It's not like I'm like anti-pot, but I don't smoke. I don't personally smoke pot. I haven't for like a while, right? And it just makes you lazy, right? If you smoke it, it's fine, whatever. But even if it's legal where you live, it's federally illegal. Okay? And they don't prosecute it, just like the FBI doesn't usually kick down felons' doors. And look, that's for a warrant. They didn't even know that he had a gun, right? Like, what if they had kicked down his door and he didn't have a gun? What if they'd gone through all that? So it makes you wonder, like, how they determined he had a gun. I don't know. I can guess. I mean, I can think of ways, but, it doesn't matter. All of that, 20 carloads of feds, because he owns a gun and he's a felon. Right? But we all know that's not why. That's not why. So if I was growing a weed plant, just one, like in my yard, or I don't know, between cactus, I don't know, whatever, right? And I was a normal person, the feds wouldn't care. But because I'm a naughty person on the internet, there'd be flashbangs going off and they'd be kicking my door down for that one weed plant. We have to start, like I said, you have to start living like a criminal. You have to start living with the assumption that they'll kick your door down and throw flashbangs and shoot your dog and all that shit over some little thing. Don't shit where you eat. Make sure that any address that they have is squeaky clean. Because if not, they will kick down your door, throw flashbangs in your house, and shoot your dog. That's if you're lucky. Wasn't he selling, because he was selling like those I think like toy guns or something at one point. And what if he'd been holding one? It's a Nazi with a gun. Quick, shoot him. They're not fucking around. They're not fucking around. Which leads me to one of my first stories here. Well, I guess this is the first story, but yeah. So FBI Director WRAYS says domestic terrorism cases have soared. They've been soaring. Domestic terrorism is everywhere. It's everywhere. They've soared to 2,000 in recent months. 2,000. I bet you can name at least 1,000 of those. This is from the SF Gate. Washington, FBI Director Christopher Wray on Tuesday defended the Bureau's handling of alarming intelligence leading up to the January 6th mob attack. At least they're not saying insurrection now. On the U.S. Capitol, saying he has long warned about the rising tide of such threats as the domestic terrorism caseload roughly doubled over the past year. See, that caseload, that means, look, I could be a case right now. I wouldn't know. How would I know? Lots of people could. 2,000, that's a big number. We have significantly grown the number of investigations and arrests, Ray told the Senate Judiciary Committee. His first testimony since the riot involving supporters of President Donald Trump. The FBI director testified in September that the number of such cases was about 1,000. By the end of 2020, there were about 1,400 such cases. And after January 6th, the figure ballooned again, the director said. Domestic terrorism has been metastasizing around the country for a long time now, and it's not going away anytime soon, Ray said. Whenever we've had the chance, we've tried to emphasize that this is a top concern. By the way, Christopher Wray is Trump's guy. I know. See, I guarantee, like, if there is a case, they've seen the videos I've done on Christopher Wray. You know, he's big concerned about some guy doing Nazi salutes on Omegle, but draining the swamp, not so much. Not so much. Sorry, Q-tards. Well, you got, by the way, speaking Q-tards, you guys got like what, 2 days to make your fantasy happen? 2 days? Isn't that then the goalpost moves again? Yes, the Q-tards still think Trump's going to become president. Only now, it's March 4th. March 4th, that's the new date. So, in a couple days, we'll know if trusting the plan was maybe a stupid idea. Ray's appearance on Capitol Hill was the latest high-profile congressional hearing to examine security and intelligence failures leading up to the riot, and what the federal government will do to counter the growing threat of violence from domestic extremists. On Wednesday, the FBI and military officials are slated to testify before a separate panel looking into the events of that fateful day. The questioning of senior officials whatever. So they're basically they're grilling these deep staters and saying, why aren't you getting rid of the Nazis? That shit freaked them the fuck out. I know a lot of people think that it was like some big false flag or whatever. No, they're just really that vulnerable. And it freaked them the fuck out. Like, it freaked them the fuck out. And so now this is what they're doing. All right, another story. This is from The Sun. Terror in Capitol. FBI Chief Christopher Wray blasts Capitol riot as domestic terrorism and says homegrown threat on par with ISIS. You're ISIS. You're ISIS now. Remember, this ties into what we were reading earlier about how they were saying that what they need to do is start imposing sanctions on quote-unquote domestic extremists the same way that they impose sanctions on states that sponsor terrorism. Don't think they won't do that. Don't think they won't do that. They're working on it right now. I was appalled that you, our country's elected leaders, were victimized right here in these very halls, Ray testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee. I didn't know they were victimized. All the people that were victimized, well, I don't know, was the woman that was shot in the fucking throat by a still, as of yet, named diversity hire Secret Service guy. That siege, it's a siege now. That siege was criminal behavior, pure and simple. It's behavior that we, the FBI, view as domestic terrorism. Ray added that the domestic terrorism is a critical threat for the FBI. In fact, we viewed it as such a critical threat that back in June of 2019, under my leadership, so this is while Trump is president, we evaluated racially and ethnically motivated violent extremism. And you know who he's talking about there. White people. To our highest threat priority on the same level with ISIS and homegrown violent extremists, he said. So pro-white people are now as much of a priority to the FBI as ISIS. And remember what they were doing? Post 9/11, the FBI was doing all kinds of shenanigans, trying to rope Muslims into terror attacks, selling them fake bombs, all this other shit. So don't think they're not doing that right now. There's probably a Discord. I have to sneeze. I keep it keeps almost happening. It doesn't matter. But don't think there's not a Discord server right now full of edgy teens and some FBI agents telling them, yeah, you should totally bomb, whatever. I have a friend. He'll sell you a bomb. Oh boy. Supporters of former President Trump have repeatedly made unsubstantiated claims that rioters were actually fake Trump supporters who belonged to left-wing Antifa movement. Yeah, look, there was that one guy who I think was trying to sleep with that reporter and got her in. But to think that it was some big coordinated thing that Antifa tricked the just fucking own it. Just own it. How weak are you? Just fucking own it. So what? Why? Just own it and then don't be ashamed of it. Be yeah, people were that pissed off. What's wrong with saying that? And then make fun of them for being babies about it. This is why the right loses. The establishment right. Well, they're designed to lose. So, of course, they always use losing strategies because they've been losing for 100 years. By design. But Ray told lawmakers on Tuesday this narrative was false, adding, "We have not to date seen any evidence of any anarchist violence extremists." Well, come on, there's a fucking video. All right. Or people subscribing to Antifa in connection with the Six. There's a fucking video. This shows you. Again, this is Trump's guy. Trump put this guy in, and I don't know that Biden's going to replace him. Why does he need to? And here he is on the record, under oath, in front of Congress, saying to date, they haven't seen any evidence of anyone tied to Antifa being involved with the Sixth. Well, all right. Well, if the FBI is watching this, I might have the video here. I don't know if I still have it anymore. I'll play it so you can pass it on to the director, Ray. There's a literal video of an look, he was really Antifa. There's tons of evidence of it. It's not just let's see here. Where would I have put that? I might not have it anymore. It's not that hard to find, though. Come on, FBI. Come on, FBI. But, we know that they don't want to find it. I'm sure lots of people have sent it to him already. And I don't know. If it's somewhere, it's somewhere. I don't know where it would be. Or maybe it's in this folder. Whatever, doesn't matter. I've played it on the stream before. There's video of this guy, and there's all of his Discord server stuff got leaked. It's obviously an Antifa guy. Oh, you know what? I might have found it. No, it's not it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Who cares? Anyway, carrying on. That doesn't mean we're not looking. And we'll continue to look. But at the moment, we have not seen that. Again, use Google, FBI, or any other search engine. You'll find it. The Justice Department has charged more than 300 people on criminal counts ranging from conspiracy to attacking police and obstructing Congress. At least 18 people associated with the far-right Proud Boys, evil Proud Boys, have been charged, and 9 people tied to the anti-government militia known as the Oath Keepers are facing charges. They conspired as far back as November to storm the Capitol to prevent Biden from becoming president. Well, if they did, you guys did a shit job. They didn't work, did it? That wasn't very effective. Ray is testifying for the first time since that deadly riot. The deadly riot. Yeah, deadly riot. Deadly for the MAGA people. Deadly for the Q-tar lady that came in, Ashley Babbitt. And so forth and so forth. Let's see here. In an interview Sunday, Trump claimed that he wanted that there... What? That's phrased weird. Hundreds of thousands of people at his rally, and said he requested 10,000 National Guard soldiers to be at the scene. They took that number. They gave it to people at the Capitol, which is controlled by Pelosi, and I heard they rejected it because they didn't think it looked good. So, that was a big mistake. I don't know. Have you guys seen his CPAC speech? I don't know how you haven't seen it. Like, YouTube has been trying to jam that fucking thing down my throat. And any time of it, look, YouTube's basically dead. Okay, so I don't even know why I'm still on it. Like, if I go to my subscription feed, all that's left is like the awful right-wing news crap that I had during the election. So like Right Side Broadcasting, NTN, and just all that garbage. Like, that's all it is. Like, you scroll through it, it's just like fucking pages of it. Because everyone's been banned. Everyone's been banned. But anyway, even if you watch one of those, it tries to shove that speech down your throat. And the funny thing is, even after that speech, where he brags about the the vaccine for like 20 minutes, I was in a position where I couldn't turn it off because, like I said, it kept playing. I was doing something. It was something else was playing, and then it started going. I was like, God damn it! I can't fucking get to it and turn it off. And all I could hear him was just, talking about the awesome vaccine and how awesome the vaccine was, and vaccine. Because what else does he have? Well, I guess he's got Christopher Wray. Like, that's another part of his legacy. I'm surprised he didn't fucking brag about that. Oh, boy. President Joe Biden's administration has tasked his National Intelligence Director to work with the FBI and Department of Homeland Security to assess the threat. Wray has kept a notably low profile since a violent mob of insurrectionists stormed the Capitol 2 months ago. Blah, 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 blah. All right, so that's the Sun. On Yahoo News, U.S. military wages war on extremism in its own ranks. We've talked about this a couple times, where the military is really concerned that all these extremists that are everywhere, the 2,000 cases that Christopher Wray has open, probably some of them are open on, military men. Nearly 2 months after some active service personnel and veterans took part in the deadly attack on the U.S. Capitol, the United States military has begun to tackle extremism within its ranks. But the fight promises to be a difficult one by the very admission of its leaders. New Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, the first black man to hold the position, ordered all units to hold a day of discussions on right-wing and white supremacist extremism. Well, that's what happens when you lose white primacy. You get a black defense secretary trying to purge white people from the military. It concerns me to think that anyone wearing the uniform of a soldier or a sailor, airman, marine, or guardian or coast guardsman would espouse these sorts of beliefs, let alone act on it, Austin said in a video recorded for the discussion. But they do. Some of them still do. In a country where freedom of speech is enshrined in the Constitution, and vigorously defended in society, really? 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 In fact, I've talked about this before. There was a fairly large poll, like it was a fairly large sample size, where they polled millennial college. This is a few years back, maybe like 6 years or so ago. They polled millennial college students, and they do it every year. And they asked them free speech questions and stuff. And one of the questions was worded something like, "Do you think that the First Amendment goes too far? Do you think it goes too far?" And every year, year after year, people would say no, in a pretty large majority, like something like 80%, right? Well, that finally, it switched. I don't remember the exact number, but it was just, it was less. It wasn't like it switched the other way, but it was over 50% for the first time about 6 years ago. Said that, yeah, the First Amendment goes too far. And that's what I knew. That's really when I knew. That's when I knew we're fucked. Because the left needed the First Amendment to subvert the culture. And if they don't need it anymore, if that's what they're saying, mission accomplished. It's done. Because they wouldn't try to shut it down if they thought they still needed more, to keep subverting. It's done. They have control. It's done. You are the subverter now. And so that now they need to shut it down. But yeah, it's a fucking joke that in a country that vigorously defends, no. Instructions were sent to all unit commanders on how to lead debate without encroaching on civil rights. Yeah, in other words, lead debate. In other words, let's try to get someone to say something that's going to reveal them as a hate monger. First of all, I don't know why you're in the military. If you join the military, bad idea. Bad idea. Sorry. Bad idea. There is absolutely no reason you should join the military. None. At this point, zero. Even if you try to, I'm a sleeper cell. No, you're not. Bad idea. Bad idea. If you have the sleeper cell strategy or whatever. But overall bad idea. It's like, why? It's basically just a bureaucrat with a high-powered rifle that might be thrown in a meat grinder for rich people or Israel at any moment, and that's it. And maybe at some point in the somewhat near future, might be asked to fire upon fellow citizens. That could happen in our lifetimes. It's starting to look more and more like that will happen in our lifetimes. The program also recommends that units reread the oath taken by... Yeah, see? You're taking an oath. Although the funny thing is, it says here, each member of the military promises to, quote, support and defend the Constitution. Yeah. Against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Yeah. Yeah. Funny how two people can hear the same sentence, same phrase, and have wildly different interpretations. Support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So the way Yahoo News is, well, and sadly, unfortunately, the Secretary of Defense, the way they interpret that is defend the ruling class from you. That's what that means. That's what it means now. Some military personnel interviewed by AFP privately expressed concerns that their profession was being singled out in the face of rising extremism throughout society. See, it's everywhere. Everywhere. I guess they're right. You know what? The answer is clearly the post office needs to root out extremists. The Forest Service needs to root out extremists. You think this isn't going to happen? It's going to happen. The second the white majority allowed affirmative action to happen, in other words, legalizing their eventual disenfranchisement from society, legalizing society preferring a different group, it was over. That was the start. Well, that wasn't really the start. We've gone further back than that, but like that was a big one. That was a big one. You got to zoom out the graph. Several of those arrested belonged to the white supremacist Oath Keepers. Now, look, I actually don't know a shit ton about the Oath Keepers. There was one, I shared a clip on Telegram once. There was a Oath Keeper lawyer. He was a Harvard guy, and I guess I'm assuming pro bono Oath Keeper lawyer guy. I think it was prior to the 6th. And look, he was talking a big game and making some good points. Honestly, saying a lot of the stuff that I said, that if Trump really believes, and he said at CPAC that he does, so I don't know what, don't know what to tell you. If he really believes that the election was stolen, that he should do by any means necessary, prevent an illegitimate president from taking office, right? That's part of your job. But what did Trump do? Dereliction of duty. Trump is he's a cardboard cutout of a strong man. That's all he is. Trump is like when you used to go to a movie theater and there'd be a cardboard cutout of some superhero next to the popcorn. That's Trump. One reason for the disproportionate representation among military personnel or veterans, according to General Kenneth McKenzie, the head of the U.S. Central Command that oversees troops deployed in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria, is that soldiers who have experienced combat sometimes feel superior to the rest of the population. Yeah, I'm sure that's what it is. It is possible for someone to become entitled with that feeling, especially if you got out and served out there in the fight. People tried to kill you. It's easy to come back and feel that you're inherently superior to your fellow. Yeah, that's what I always hear all the time, right? From people that come back from war, that they feel superior. Yeah, they're not addicted to drugs and alcoholics and killing themselves and shit like that, right? Like they're walking around, they're walking on sunshine. They feel superior. See, this is the thing. Notice that language. It's all part of the let's reframe white primacy as white supremacy. Because they have to do that. They have to do that. If they don't reframe white primacy as white supremacy, then you have an argument. But if they do, like I've talked about before, white supremacy implies that you think white people are better at everything and are just naturally just better across the board. And, you know, take it one more step further, because look, that's how the ruling class thinks. They think that they're better than everyone. So therefore, you should be in charge of everyone and ruling over everyone. Well, that's not what really anyone's talking about. Like, maybe there's a handful of people out there talking about that, but really not. Most people aren't making that argument, because it's provably false. White people aren't better at everything. They're not. They're just not. As I said before, if they were, the NBA would be all white. And quite frankly, we never would have passed affirmative action. And we wouldn't be in this situation now. The reason why we're in this situation where we're losing our homelands is because we have failed as a people to keep them. If we were superior, that wouldn't have happened. But we're not. And no one's, like I said, no one's saying that we are. We're just saying we want to make the rules in our own home. And if you come and visit, we don't want you to just move in. I want you to leave. This is our home. We built our home for us, for our family. And we don't want to go to your house and tell you what to do. We just want you to stay the fuck out and let us have our fucking home. And we're sorry that our home is so nice, and it's much nicer than your home. But your home's never going to get good if you keep coming over here. Anyway, you guys get it. I don't need to beat it to death. Everyone gets it. Nazi uniform. Let's see here. But extremism is a growing concern inside the ranks, said Pentagon spokesman John Kirby. How big is it? We don't know. The numbers are probably larger than we would like. A senior officer told AFP that his son, deciding between two military universities, visited one of his preferred schools to get a sense of the atmosphere. The student who gave him a tour opened his own locker to show off his most prized possession, a Nazi uniform. Dun, dun, dun. You know what that reminds me of? First of all, that you know that didn't happen. That reminds me of, I did a whole video on falling down. It was actually, I think I did it right before YouTube really started hammering my channel, because it got up there. Like, the views were, it got over 100,000 views, unless I'm thinking of something else. Anyway, it reminds me of a scene from Falling Down. This scene right here. See? Let's see. So basically, if you haven't seen this movie, this Jewish actor here playing a white guy in a Jewish directed and written film, he goes to a gun shop he snaps earlier in the day, does a bunch of crazy shit. And the gun guy is like, "Oh, I know the cops are looking for you, and I know what you're up to. You know, you're gonna kill all the darkies, right? Here, I'm gonna show you my secret Nazi room. My secret Nazi room."
What's a police scanner for?
My own personal amusement.
All right. Hold on. So here's his secret Nazi room.
I got some great stuff here. Wonder how many kikes this little...
All right. So, yeah. Zyklon B. So, we know that didn't happen. We know he wasn't like, hey, you want to go to this school? Why don't you come to my secret Nazi room? You know what this is? This is a can of Zyklon B. Anyway. So, yeah, look, look, everyone's a Nazi. In fact, it's so ridiculous at this point, the whole everyone's a Nazi thing, that Amazon had to change one of their logos. Let me see if I can capture this here. And look, at this point, it's not even, it's straight up delusion, because I don't even know. I don't even see it. Like, I'm one of those guys, I can look at a cloud, you know, and see a shape, and you know, I'm a very visual person. And I apparently they had to change this logo because people said it looked too much like Hitler. I'm assuming they mean the one on the left. I don't know. I actually don't know. I don't know which one they mean is Hitler. Both? I mean, they don't say in the article. So, here it is. Dun, 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 dun. Amazon has changed its new smartphone app logo after critics said the earlier incarnation was a dead ringer for Adolf Hitler. The e-commerce giant introduced the new icon in January to replace the symbol of a shopping cart with one featuring a brown box. Oh, I guess, okay, the one on the left is Hitler. A brown box with a jagged piece of blue tape above the company's iconic smile, or smile-shaped arrow. But sharp-eyed users, not too sharp-eyed, I don't think it's very sharp-eyed, noticed the tape disturbingly recalled the Fuhrer's toothbrush mustache. It's a mustache? Okay, so they're saying that, like, see, this is the level of delusion we're dealing with here. It's not just a ripped Scotch tape. It's a ripped Scotch tape that has a similar shape and is right on top of a smiling mouth. Looks like a happy little cardboard Adolf, said one person on Twitter. Oh, because one person on Twitter, we got to change our logo. I mean, I don't care. Fuck Amazon, but Amazon's new app logo be looking like they're on the third most downloaded in the Reich section. Ha ha, said another. Users also took note of Amazon's tweak, in which the blue tape was made to look folded over. LMAO, I completely missed that Amazon quietly tweaked its new icon to make it look less like Hitler. Unsurprisingly, they did not send out a press release to announce the second redesign. Amazon said it is always exploring new ways to delight our customers. We designed the new icon to spark anticipation, excitement, and joy when customers start their shopping journey on the phone, just as they do when they see our boxes at their doorstep. But then we made it look like Hitler instead to scare all the Jews. No, I obviously added that part. So yeah, everything's fucking Hitler with these people. Everything's fucking Hitler, and it's just the hysteria. It's just getting started. It really is just getting started. Sadly, it really is just getting started. Little by little, this is gonna get worse, and because we talked about the different steps of genocide. I did a whole stream on this. If you haven't seen it, check out. I think it was called Genocide Edition, the Insomnia stream Genocide Edition. It's on BitChute. This is part of that process. Part of that process is getting the public so paranoid about the target group that they're literally seeing Hitler on Amazon logos. Okay, that's part of the process. They're all. Can you imagine? Look, and I'm not playing the. Can you imagine if the white guy did? No, I want you to. This is like an actual mental exercise here. Think about it this way. What would you say? We see this story, right? And it's just like, oh, the people are crazy, right? But what does it say about society? And the way you determine what that says about society is contrast it now. Think about if Amazon came out with a logo and you and maybe your friends, for whatever reason, said, this looks too much like a Jewish star, like the Star of David. Or like Twitter, right? Let's say the blue check mark, or I don't know, something. This looks too much like a Star of David. And then they change it. What would you be able to say about that society? Who would be in charge of that society? It would be you, right? And so you have a complaint about something gets done about it. If you noticed, over the past, my whole life, nothing that people on the right have complained about has ever been addressed. Literally nothing. Nothing. Because you're not in charge and never have been. And I'm sorry, but trying to infiltrate the GOP with Judeo-Christian values is never going to work. You're just playing right into the merry-go-round of complain about something until it happens and then it becomes normalized. Complain about next thing. Nothing happens, it gets normalized. Complain about next thing. It wasn't that long ago. It really wasn't that long ago that the GOP was trying to amend the Constitution to outlaw gay marriage. And now you're a like the GOP tells you that you're a homophobe. If you don't want gays, not just in the GOP, leading the GOP. That happened in less than 2 decades. Less than 2 decades. And in fact, look, the GOP's already been doing this shit where they've been trying to, we're a big tent. We need to go after Hispanics. They've been trying to, look, I knew that nothing would ever happen on immigration when, like, again, probably around the same time, like 15, 20 years ago, the GOP was saying, well, you know, we need to start appealing to Hispanics. Because what does that tell you? When they say we need to start appealing to Hispanics, they're saying we're not going to stop the demographic change. And if we want to survive as an entity, then we need to appeal to the group that's replacing white people. Because if you intended to stop that replacement, why would you go after this other demographic? You wouldn't. You would see it as unnecessary because you were going to succeed, right? No, they never even intended to address it. Never. So there you go. Amazon is Hitler. And they changed it. As ridiculous as that is, because people are delusional and being whipped up into a frenzy so that when they eventually genocide us, no one gets mad. All right, moving right along. Like I said, we got a lot of stuff to cover. A lot of stuff to cover. Don't worry, I'll get the chat here in a second, but I want to blow through some of this stuff here. All right. Next up. Stimulus checks have Americans in agreement, but actually, you know what? I'm going to do it. Let's do a different story first because it's tied to this. Fuck it. I'll do this one and then we'll go to what's... They're tied. There doesn't have to be a order to this. All right. Stimulus checks have Americans in agreement, but country bitterly split on everything else. Alarming new data shows that nearly a third of Americans would be supportive of splitting the country up into different regions. What they're talking about is secession. A third of Americans support secession. A third of Americans. Not a third of Republicans. A third of Americans support secession. Look, guys, there's peaceful ways, easy peaceful ways of doing this. A third of Americans supporting something that extreme is, I'm sure, setting off all kinds of alarm bells in Washington. In a year filled with civil unrest and the deepest political divisions in recent history, America is coming together on one issue: COVID-19 relief in the form of free money. A new survey finds generous financial blah, blah, blah. All right. Republican and Democrat voters show bitter divides on most other political issues. In fact, 3 in 10 Americans say their differences are so irreconcilable, they support their state seceding from the U.S. According to a poll by political science research project Brightline Watch, voters in both major parties support the passage of... All right, why do they keep trying to tie the COVID bill to this bullshit? Across the board, Americans, blah, blah, blah. All right, good for you. Of course, people like free money. Here we go. While Americans agree on the need for stimulus check, Jesus, stop. We get it. Researchers find just 22% of Republicans, here we go. Just 22% of Republicans have confidence in the integrity of the 2020 election results. Yeah, that's kind of a big deal. I'm surprised it's that high, though. That's far less than 42% of Republican policy experts polled by the survey. In a democracy, people basically have to trust that the rules are fair and that if their party or their team loses, the stakes of that loss won't be intolerable. That in the future, they'll be able to contest an election again and that they'll be able to have the chance of winning. That keeps everyone committed to democracy and to playing by the rules, explains Brightlight, blah, 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 blah. once you break the faith that elections actually determine who the winner is, people's allegiance to democracy wanes. Yeah, you mean once you steal an election, people stop thinking they can vote their way out of their situation? You think? Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Overall, the poll finds Democrat voters trust the 2020 election. Gee, I wonder why. Support disqualifying Trump from running office again. Well, I kind of support that. Well, yeah, anyway. Republicans, on the other hand, distrust election results and favor moving on with further legal action against Trump, blah, 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 blah. While stunning talk of secession from states like Texas and other Republican-leaning areas may sound like a radical idea, the survey finds many Democrat voters actually support breaking up the U.S. as well. Quote, until recently, we would have regarded it as too marginal to include in a survey, but state legislatures in Mississippi and Texas and state GOP leaders in Texas and Wyoming have openly advocated secession in recent months, prompting us to design 2 survey items to gauge perceptions of this idea. See, this is good. This is good. This is good news. Overall, just 21% of Democrat voters also support secession. But look, that's 21% of Democrats. That's good. This is good. Speaking of one state they didn't mention, let's get to the other story now, was Oklahoma. This happened, I guess, technically yesterday, but for me today. The Oklahoma State House has passed a bill that would allow the state attorney general and legislature to declare federal laws and executive orders issued under Democratic President Joe Biden as unconstitutional. All right. Now, what that means is, we'll get into this. I'll continue reading, but this is the kind of shit that happens before secession, hopefully, or civil war, possibly. When you have states that are openly defying the federal government, the federal government only has 2 options. They can try to do sanctions, right? They can try to withhold funding. Oklahoma is not a particularly rich state, so I could see that bringing them to their knees, very, very possibly. Who knows what else will go down, what'll happen down the road. But the only other option is force. The bill, HB 1236, would allow Oklahoma Attorney General to review any executive orders, congressional laws, or federal agency rules to see if they violate the U.S. Constitution. If the Attorney General doesn't oppose them, then the state legislature could do so through a majority vote. The bill was approved last week through a 80-14 vote. 80-14 vote in the Republican-led state house. Republican Senate Majority Floor Leader Kim David has not publicly said whether she supports the measure, according to KOCO. The bill's author, Republican Representative Mark McBride, said that he created the bill not because of Biden's political party, but rather because of the high number of executive orders Biden has issued just 1 month into his presidency. I think this president has just taken a direct stab at Oklahoma, McBride told the Oklahoman. Specifically, he said Biden's executive orders and plans to champion green energy technology took aim at the state's fossil fuel industry. Well, and then also Oklahoma, they took a massive hit from the Supreme Court. I'm pretty sure this was Oklahoma. Let me look. Let me just double check. Where Oklahoma, the Supreme Court reviewed, or they had a case where a tribe of Indians said that their reservation included like big chunks of like cities. Let me see here. Yeah. So yeah, it was the Cherokee Nation. So the Supreme Court literally gave the Cherokee Nation about half of Oklahoma. And that happened in July of last year. And I don't know how that's shaking out right now, but that's, you know, that's what happens when you lose white primacy. That's just the beginning. The Supreme Court gave half of Oklahoma to the Cherokee Nation. Now, what that could, I don't know how this is going to shake out eventually, but how that could end up happening. I mean, this could be the first step down a slippery slope, right? In terms of Oklahoma in this case. In a lot of Indian reservations, you can't, unless you're a member of a tribe, you can't own property, right? So a lot of these casinos that come in, the casino is owned by the tribe. They all get checks, right? So even though they clearly don't run the casino stuff, people from Vegas, step in and take over that industry. But the way that it works is if you're one of these casino guys and you start a casino on an Indian reservation, the reason why you're allowed to do that in the first place, first of all, is you're not bound by federal law, right? And you're not bound by the state law. I guess in some cases you're kind of bound by some federal laws because of whatever. It depends on the reservation, right? Because they have different treaties. So you open up this casino, but the catch is you have to basically give dividends to the tribe. So there's a lot of tribes where every month, I knew a girl and she lived on a reservation in New Mexico. And she worked with me at, this is kind of funny. I worked at a Victoria's Secret briefly. And she worked with me there, and she was saying, "Oh yeah, I worked this job just for extra spending money because the only bill that I have is my phone bill." And she said the only reason why she didn't have a phone bill was that was a private company, right? So like all of her utilities, because of it's like quasi state run stuff like in New Mexico. So all of her utility, like gas, electric, water, all free. Her home, free. No taxes. And she got a casino check every month. And so she was just working because she was bored, I guess. So what could happen? There's a lot of tribes like that. There's a lot of people don't know this. And like I've said before, these are ethno-states. Yeah, the mean, evil white man, when he took over America, gave them ethno-states. Like it's funny because they've been bitching about this shit for like 200, 300 years. And that's literally like our fucking wet dream. That's why we did it. Because that's what we would have wanted. But other groups are not going to extend that same courtesy to us. They're not going to say, yeah, you did, you were here when we showed up and we kind of pushed you off your land, but we'll give you this shitty land in the desert or, whatever, depends on what tribe. Some of it's kind of, pretty good land. No, we'd love that shit. We would love that. But they're not going to do that for us. They're definitely not going to do that for us. And if they did, how long would it be before they moved, they tried to invade the Indian reservation or the white people reservation? But no, they're literally ethno-states. You have to get DNA tests and everything. Like they do DNA tests, and then if you're X amount of, Indian, like there's even like a cutoff. Like Elizabeth Warren probably wouldn't qualify. Well, again, this varies by tribe, like how crazy they get about it, right? But I knew a guy who looked like just as white as anyone else. And because he was something like a 16th, I don't remember what tribe this was. He got a check. Every month, got a check. And not just a check, he got like weird stuff too. Like he said that they would give him like, it wasn't like food stamps, but it was like some kind of coupon where he could go redeem it for like free, like bulk food. I mean, I don't, excuse me. Like I said, it's, every tribe has like a different treaty. So I don't remember what tribe that was, but like, yeah, like, so not only do we give them ethno-states, we funded. Like these treaties, almost, well, if not all of them, they include free health care. They're not paying for it. You are paying for their ethno-states. You're paying for their health care. You're paying for their education. Oftentimes free college. With no strings attached either. It's not like, oh, if you're an Indian and you get this grade point average. No, you can go there forever. And flunk all your classes every semester and just keep going. And it's always free. And you're paying for that. You're paying for that. Oh, but you should feel really bad, right? You should feel terrible about the Indians. Oh, the poor Indians. They got shoved onto reservations. By the way, there's no like wall around the reservation keeping them in there. They don't have to stay there. But who wouldn't fucking stay there for that? That would be awesome. But of course, if you look at Indian reservations, they're far from awesome. Because biology matters. Anyway, so half of Oklahoma is technically now in the hands of an ethno-state, the Cherokee ethno-state. So I don't know. I don't know how that'll shake out in the future. All the articles now are saying, "Oh, it's not a big deal. It's just going to change some jurisdiction stuff." Because what had happened was some Indian guy, I think he like shot someone, or I don't know, he did something fucked up, and like the cops were chasing him and arrested him, and a Jewish lawyer said, "You don't have jurisdiction here because of some old treaty I dug up. We have found that where you arrested him was technically on the Cherokee Nation, and so we're going to take it to the Supreme Court." That's really what happened, and now they own half of Oklahoma. Again, I don't know how it's all going to shake out, but you know, their ethno-state is expanding. It's getting bigger. You got half of Oklahoma now. So, yeah, Oklahoma, not a big fan of the federal government anymore. Not a big fan of the federal government. Speaking of fans, university hosts OnlyFans event for students keen on starting to destigmatize sex work. That's right. Go to college so they can teach you how to join OnlyFans. The OnlyFans webinar was one of several online lectures throughout a week-long Ohio State University event devoted to education about sex work and the adult film industry. As part of Ohio State's Sex Week, psychology and political science student Emma King hosted a webinar advising would-be OnlyFans creators on how to examine their experiences and take the stigma out of sex work. The hour-long online event, which took place on Saturday, was organized by OSU student advocates for sexual health awareness. A description of the event titled OnlyFans Behind the Scenes said, starting in OnlyFans, join us for a panel with OnlyFans content creators to discuss their experiences and destigmatizing digital sex work. It's one of several seminars throughout the week-long event devoted to sex work and the adult film industry. Emma says that Sex Week, which is in its 5th year, was originally created to address the abysmal sex education provision in the state of Ohio. So now you can go to college and start trying to pay off your student loans by starting an OnlyFans. And they'll teach you all about it, because they want to get rid of the stigma of having an OnlyFans account or being in porn. And this is a state college. Remember, once again, what does that say about who's in charge? Does that say Christian conservatives are in charge? When people say, oh, if that had happened in the 1950s, they would string those people up from the... You know what? That's because you were in charge in the 1950s. You're not in charge. You're not in control. And you have no power. That's just the way it is. It's the way it is. And honestly, a lot of that started when you lost education. You know, the Frankfurt School and all that fun stuff that happened after World War II, when a particular demographic moved here en masse and began subverting your youth little by little, until now a state college is literally telling your daughter to be a porn actress. Other panels included Kink 101, Decolonizing Porn, Why We Need Ethical Production. Decolonizing porn. What does that sound like to you? Too many white people in porn, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I guess I agree with that. There are too many white people in porn. But usually the people who own the porn companies, they're not white so much as they are their fellow white. And that's pretty consistent across the board. I don't know if you guys know that. That's nearly every major porn conglomerate is Jewish owned. So yeah, there you go. That's happening at Ohio State. Told you we had a lot to go through. All right. Back to vaccines. Vaccines. So Texas has lifted all their COVID nonsense, all the mask rules and all the closures, and so they're back to normal somehow. So Texas is back to normal. And people are spurging out because, you know, you're putting my grandma in danger. My autistic kid is going to die now because of you. So it's very important now that, because we have all these people in Texas who are going to be just roaming about free, you know, spreading COVID everywhere. You know, it's making sure that everyone has COVID. And you know it's COVID because, as I'm about to show you, it has to be COVID because the flu no longer exists. That's right. After centuries, if not millennia, of influenza spreading among the human population, last year it just disappeared. It completely vanished. No flu. It stopped existing. So because flu no longer exists, really what we need to stop now is COVID. And the only way to to really get it, especially with all these assholes in Texas, is to have vaccine passports. That's right. We now have vaccine passports. I'm sure you guys are familiar with this. So this is the New York Times. The next major flashpoint over coronavirus response has already provoked cries of tyranny. See, you're just bitching and moaning about tyranny. Protests in Denmark. Cries of discrimination in Britain. Protests in Denmark. Digital disinformation, like my show, in the United States. And geopolitical skirmishing with the European Union. The subject of debate, vaccine passports. Government-issued cards or smartphone badges, that's what they would really like, stating that the bearer has been inoculated against the coronavirus. Because the flu does not exist. The idea is to allow families to reunite, economies to restart, and hundreds of millions of people who have received the shot to return to a degree of normalcy. You could just do what Texas did. All without spreading the virus. Some portions of the documentation, or some versions of the documentation might permit bearers to travel internationally. Others would allow entry into vaccinated-only spaces like gyms, concert venues, and restaurants. See, it's not just a passport for going to other countries. It's a passport to go buy groceries. Private companies can do what they want. They don't even have to do this legally. All they have to do is create the system. And all these private companies have to do is say, in order for you to shop here, for the safety of our other customers, you better have that vaccine passport. If you don't have the vaccine passport, you cannot shop at Safeway or Walmart or, whatever. While such passports are still hypothetical in most places, Israel became the first to roll out its own last week. Wow. Really? That's not shocking at all. Capitalizing on its high vaccination rate, several European countries are now considering following Israel's example. President Biden has asked federal agencies to explore options, and some airlines and tourism-reliant industries and destinations expect to require them. Airlines will see it's a private company. So they don't have to make it illegal for you to fly. They just have to, the private company crowd, which is who's running the show, right? They just have to say, it's a safety issue. In the same way that we can require you to wear like shoes and a shirt into our store, we can require that you have this vaccine passport. We require that you're wearing pants to fly on this plane. Why can't we require you to have this vaccine passport? Dividing the world between the vaccinated and unvaccinated raises daunting political and ethical questions that I'm sure you guys will smooth over and it won't matter. Vaccines go overwhelmingly to rich countries. Oh, that's what it is, huh? And it's so funny because part of this is part of the whole, the demonizing propaganda for the genocide. But part of this is to make white people feel guilty and to deflect, so that when they think about this, they don't think, oh, this is bullshit. They're going to make me get a vaccine in order to go to the grocery store. No, see what they're doing to like the normie brain is they're saying, oh, it's so sad because black people won't be able to get groceries unless they get, they get the vaccine. So you should feel bad in a totally different way that has nothing to do with the actual thing, and that is your safety. Vaccines go overwhelmingly to rich countries and privileged racial groups within them. See? Granting special rights for the vaccinated while tightening restrictions on the unvaccinated. See, that's the problem. That's the problem, is that it's racist. And that evil white people will have the magic thing that allows them to go shopping. So anyway. And it's not just the airlines. And it's not just the grocery stores. From military.com, military may revisit making COVID-19 vaccines mandatory. Mandatory. After FDA grants approval. The Pentagon has not yet decided whether to require service members to get inoculated against COVID-19 once the FDA grants full approval for the vaccines. But in a briefing with reporters Monday, Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby indicated full FDA approval could change how the military's leadership looks at this issue. Obviously, we're thinking about what happens when they become FDA approved, Kirby said. It could change the character of the decision-making process. But whether we would be mandatory or voluntary, about whether they could be mandatory or voluntary. But I don't want to get ahead of that process right now. See, this is the same, again, it's the same language that you often see that I've called out before. They won't just say what they mean. But you can, anyone with a couple brain cells to rub together, you get what he's saying. They're gonna make it mandatory. And look, the military has all kinds of vaccines that are already mandatory, right? Like if you show up, I mean, they start shoving needles into your arm like day one. So it's why would one more be such a hard thing for them to do? Yet another reason why I don't know why anyone's joining the military. All right, so that is that. One more story. So while our military is going after their best and brightest demographic, they are promoting trans members of the military. They're shoving COVID vaccines into, they're changing the characterization of the debate, or whatever the fucking guy said. While all that's going on, something completely different is happening in China, which, by the way, according to research, and I don't have that article in front of me, but according to research in some, I think it was like a New York Times article, they said that they're on par to overtake, they just overtook the United States in trade with Europe, like about a month ago or something. And they are on par just to eclipse our economy by 2028, which used to sound like a long time in the future, and that's right around the corner. 2028. And one of the reasons why China is on the rise and will continue to be on the rise is they're not afraid to do shit like this. Homosexuality can be called a mental disorder, rules Chinese court. And why wouldn't it be? All of America, not even 15, 20 years ago, it was listed as a mental disorder. In the official, what is it called? Like the ADA or whatever, the official publication of all the mental disorders and all that stuff. It was homosexuality. It was considered a mental disorder for all of human history, or at least all of America's history. I mean, well, I guess before they pathologized it, it was just considered an abomination. And then it became a mental disorder. And then now it's awesome. Homosexuality can be considered a psychological disorder in the eyes of Chinese law. Citing controversial academic literature, a court in the eastern Chinese province of Jiangsu ruled that a textbook defining queerness as a disorder is not a factual error, but a divergent academic view. See, look, unfortunately for the Chinese, in their rush to become westernized before they realized where that would lead them, they did adopt a lot of liberal ideas. And so it looks like they're headed back in the other direction. But for now, it's just a divergent academic view. The ruling from the Sichuan, whatever that is, Intermediate People's Court, upholds a lower court's ruling. So there you go. There you go. Officially, homosexuality was decriminalized. See, this is back in 1997, and ceased classifications of mental illness in 2001. So that's back when they were still like, oh, look, the West is so successful and the future, and we need to westernize our culture a little bit. So there you go. There you go. They're headed in the right direction. All right. So that's all the stories that I have, all the news stories I have today. Let's take a look at chat. Mamas, don't let your babies grow up to be Brokeback Mountain cowboys. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's pretty easy. Just don't molest your kid or let them get molested. That, honestly, if you just did that, you would cut back on probably maybe all homosexuality, but certainly like the bulk of it. It's not a meme. It used to be common knowledge, and it still is in most of the world, that sexual abuse leads to sexual deviancy. That's just not 100% of the time, but like usually a lot of the people who are sexually deviant were abused. And I've said this before, every single homosexual that I've had to work with on a regular basis and spend any kind of time with, every single one of them was sexually abused. And not just sexually abused, they told me about it, like unsolicited. Sometimes weirdly, like at random, after only knowing them for like a couple hours. So, at least in my case, it's like 100%. And even when they don't even necessarily view it as like Milo, perfect example, right? Milo's was a pretty high profile fag on the right, and he talked openly about. I don't think that he characterized it as abuse, but he said he fucked a priest when he was like 14. I mean, I'm telling you, like almost with my sample size, it's 100%. I don't know what the actual number is, obviously, but in my personal experience, it's like 100%. All right, take a look here. Blackpilled.com needs the FBI hasn't been here thing that you have to re-authenticate with a password every 24 to 48 hours. It'd be good if you had PGP, blah, 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 blah. All right. Well, I don't know. I'm going to figure out all that stuff. This is why we need to do that community stuff. Lots of people have responded, so I'll be getting to all those in fairly short order. But thank you to all those who have sent me an email. It's a lot. So I'll be sitting down and just pouring through all those over the next few days here. Have you seen the documentary Ghost Army? I think they faked the 6 million dead. Yeah, well, I think anyone that's done any kind of research knows that number is ridiculous. And that maybe even the idea that it was even like a targeted, systematic thing is ridiculous. What are my thoughts on Spielberg? I used to be a big fan when I was into making, filmmaking and stuff like that. I wanted to make. I mean, some of his movies were my favorite movies when I was a kid, right? Like E.T. Didn't he do the first Jurassic Park? Indiana Jones, stuff like that. But once you revisit that stuff as an adult and you see a lot of the subversive stuff, it's like it's not hard to miss, And there were things that made me uncomfortable even as a kid, right? In E.T., for example. I don't know why, but it was something something really kind of like set like the kid alarm, like the don't talk, the stranger danger alarm in my head with a couple scenes in E.T. Like one where E.T. gets drunk and for some reason they're like connected. Let me bring up some images of E.T. here. Sometimes they have like the mind connection. Let's see. I don't know if you guys remember that part of it. Why not? What? I thought I had that. Here it is. Okay. Let me get rid of this. Why is it cutting it off like that? Well, it doesn't matter. So a couple things weirded me out about this. First, in the very beginning, one of the kids calls... And remember, this is a movie made for kids. And one of the first bits of dialogue is the main character, I forget the names, like Billy or whatever, the little kid in the very beginning. One of the first bits of dialogue is his older brother calling another kid penis breath right in front of the single mom. Of course, it's a single mom, right? And there's no father at all. I mean, E.T. is just kind of creepy just all around if you think about it. So that, when I was a kid, I squirmed a little bit. I was like, ugh, what? Because I didn't know what that, it sounded gross to me. And I couldn't really put my finger on it. I was weirded out that there was no dad. And I was weirded out that E.T. got drunk. And then, now it'd be classified as sexual assault. Let's see here. See, that's the other thing. And the amount of time that he's like shirtless or in his underwear around E.T. was a little weird. And let's see. Let me get to the part. Where is it at? Yeah, so E.T. is getting drunk at the house. And then Elliot's his name. Elliot then sexually assaults, by today's standards, a girl by kissing her or whatever, and gets sent home because he feels drunk. Another creepy part about it was when he's like laying there. there's just something slightly creepy about their relationship between E.T. and Elliot. Right? They're just something and the fact that, E.T.'s naked. He's like this gross, wrinkled, naked old guy, kind of. Right? Like, if you look at him, it's kind of a gross, wrinkled, old, naked guy. And, the fact that they, let's see here. There's one shot in particular where they're like on the floor in the bathroom. I don't know. It just has total creep vibes. Like, is this it? Oh yeah, this is where like the son's like, "Hey mom, I got to show you this weird wrinkled old guy that's been sleeping with your son." Let's see here. Yeah, and they're just like, look, he's in his pajamas, and they're just, I don't know. I'm just saying, there's just something that's kind of pedophilic about E.T. There just is. And rewatch it if you want. I'm not gonna do like a video on it. It's not video worthy necessarily, and I think other people. I think Owen's talked about this a little bit. I've talked to Owen about this privately, so I think that people kind of get it. But if you don't get it, rewatch it. Just rewatch it, and just keep in mind that it's made for kids. And there's just some really kind of creepy shit. Like even just the framing of this shot, where he's like, they're looming over him. Like he's so small in the shot. I don't know. That's my thoughts on Spielberg. I mean, Spielberg's family came here from, just like a lot of these guys they're almost always from Ukraine or Russia. And they came here right around like 1912 or so, like right around there. That's when like a fucking, several boatloads, quite literally, full of these Eastern European Jews. They came to America, and many of them went to Hollywood because of the whole nepotism thing, right? Like, oh, go to Hollywood, you'll get a job. And so the families of, or actually, not in Spielberg, I don't think his family was in Hollywood. I think he later ended up in Hollywood. But no, he went, because he went to film school with Lucas and I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. A lot of these people, you look at their family history, you look at their early life, and a shocking amount of them came like about 100 years ago, right around 100 years ago. That's when Weinstein's family came here. That's when Epstein's family came here. If I had to guess, that's probably when like Seinfeld's family came here. You'd be surprised at how many of them came here roughly about 100 years ago. Maybe slightly more than 100 years ago. And then look at them now. All right, my great grandpa came here as a poor immigrant, and look at me now. So, there we go. Okay, someone's saying Steven Spielberg's father was an electrical engineer. Yeah. That's probably right. Do you foresee California being one of the first states to shut its domestic borders from people trying to leave the state? I'm terrified that something like a communist-style purging would happen there. I have family that lives there, and they refuse to see the writing on the wall. There'd be a lot more writing on the wall before that happened. I don't think they're just going to like wall up California and start, murdering all the right-wing people. But I mean, look, could that maybe eventually down the road happen? I guess, but there's going to be a lot more. We're not there yet. We're definitely not there yet. What they'll do is right now, because what happens first is they're going to start legally separating us, right? So right now, what they're talking about, we have affirmative action, right? But they'll start, instead of doing racial positive laws for blacks, they'll start doing racial negative laws for whites. The second that happens, now you're in trouble. As soon as they and look, you could say there's policies that already do that, but right now it's in the name of, and maybe it'll always be in the name, I guess, of the disadvantaged, right? And combating privilege and white supremacy and all that stuff. I mean, maybe the labeling or the reasoning will never change. I don't know, or if it'll evolve to maybe something more explicit. But I would say we're not there yet. We're not there yet. As much as we don't control the society anymore and we're not at the wheel and white primacy is gone, we're still like half the population. And we still have, as a group, as much as many of our group is kind of really into self-harm, we still have a lot of people, and we still have a lot of people with money, and that would be like a step too far. They call it boiling the frog for a reason. That would be turning up the heat way too hot for where we're at right now. So I mean, look, is that something your kids might have to deal with? Maybe. I don't know about like locking them in. You would think that they'd want them to leave. It's like, okay, I'll sound like a mainstream conservative for a second. When the Nazis went after the Jews, look, the Nazis didn't try to prevent Jews from leaving the country. I mean, they had the Jewish ghettos or whatever, but lots of people left the country. Lots of them. Many of them came to America, right? So if you want to leave, I would think that even if they wanted to get rid of white people, if you were leaving, I don't know why they'd want you to stay, unless it got to like that's like next level. Like if you're talking like they're gonna just systematically start killing whites, they're in no position to do that. First of all, just like from a logistics point of view, but also just from an optical point of view, we're not there yet. That's down the road. Is conquest by non-white countries their backup plan if replacement migration fails? What do you mean? If it didn't fail, it's already done. I mean, I don't know. What are you talking about? You have German in your name. Okay, no, you're German American though. No, it's already done, dude. You're not unfucking this one. Like this is You're not America's not a white country. It's not. And without something dramatic and substantial happening, it won't be. And most likely just won't be. But maybe there will be a majority white country where some states are right now or something. I don't know though. But that's probably like the best you'd ever get. But in terms of like their back, who needs a backup plan? The plans we just talked about this. The plans, it worked. It's not like it's working. It worked. It worked. So now all they have to do is keep the people on the right spinning their wheels with shit like the GOP and we're gonna vote our way out of that crowd. They just got to get people spinning their wheels and thinking that. So you're saying there's a chance. As long as they can keep that feeling, that hope, the white pilled, as long as they can keep that going as long as possible, that's what they want, right? But it's already done. We already lost. It's already done. There's literally no way to turn that around without something dramatic and substantial. Like it would have to shit would have to go down to even remotely try to address that. There's no political means of changing that. And look, there doesn't look like there's even a big desire to change that certainly not in like the mainstream right. I mean, if you watch CPAC, there's zero desire by any group of a significant size to do that. So it's already a done deal. It's already a done deal. Now, if the secession thing happens, might there be a state that is a little more ethnocentric. Yeah. But I mean, what state would that be, right? Look at the demographics of the individual states. It's not just limited to places like California. Like, this has been a pretty across the board type situation. I've talked about before how when illegal immigrants, come into the country illegally, the immigration people will literally fly them into the interior of the country to quote unquote await their immigration trial. And we all know that a lot of them don't show up, right? So what's happening is, in a very systematic way, is millions of people are crossing the border from the south or from wherever. It doesn't even matter. Like, maybe they're showing up, at ports, or I don't know, maybe those damn Canadians are coming in. And but mostly, people crossing the border from the south, and it doesn't matter where they're from. If you cross the border from the south and you are Somali, or, and that happens a lot. That's how a lot of people enter the country, because there's no wall. Sorry, Trump never built the wall. In 4 years, didn't build the fucking wall. And he made it sound like he could do it in 4 months. And then what they'll do is they fly you, because what they'll say is, well, if we just had them all stay here, like in El Paso or wherever it is they go, then it would overrun which says something about the numbers, right? It would overrun and tax the local community too much. And so because they don't have the resources locally, we're going to fly you to Maine. And so they fly them to Maine and just drop them off in Maine, and often give them welfare and shit until they're, to await, quote unquote, await their trial, right? And they can just not show up to the trial, which a lot of them do, and now they're just in Maine. And they've been doing this this isn't like a new thing. This has been going on for like a really long time. And so just look at the demographics of every state. And those are the official numbers, right? We all know that, first of all, the census is probably not picking up on a lot of the illegal immigrants, if any, right? They're certainly not allowed to ask if you're an illegal immigrant, but they're probably not even tracking them down, because the way the census tracks you down is, I think, through like tax records and stuff like that, right? So if you're here illegally with no paper trail, they don't even show up to count you. And they've been saying the same number my entire life, like, oh, it's 11 million or something. It's probably like 30 million. Who knows? But it's a lot. It's a lot. And so there's a lot of people not being counted in these demographic numbers they give you anyway. And it's still terrible, even if you ignore all that. And then in over half the states, whites are below replacement rate on birth rates. So it's like I said, it's done. You're not going to turn that around. Now, European countries, I feel like have more of a chance to turn that shit around. Partially because they've got the indigenous people argument, they also don't have like the dead horse that is slavery and stuff like that. So but I don't know, Europe's also more cucked in a lot of ways. They don't have guns, for one. They've always been more, leftist, always. So I don't know that they'll turn that around everywhere. I mean, they didn't turn it around. Look, London's less than London. The capital of Angloria is less than 50% white. The capital. So, I mean, maybe the writing's on the wall there too. Maybe that's I don't know though. I don't know. I don't live there, so it's hard. It's way harder for me to make predictions about places I haven't lived. So it's, but I can tell you, as far as America goes, it's done. It's already done. It's done. That's why, all this shit, all these ideas that we're going to infiltrate the GOP, or we're gonna get candidates and run, it's just to keep you busy, so you shut up. That's all it is. It's to keep you busy and to keep you having faith in a system that everyone knows is a scam. Or at least, what was it, 67% of Republicans? And look, it's a shrinking number. The further we get from Biden's inauguration, the fewer people. This is just the way it is. Republicans are do-nothings, not just the people at the top, but the people that keep voting GOP and expecting things to change. They'll slowly just stop caring. And look, the Democrats did the same thing, and obviously the situation was much different, but they thought Bush stole the election from Gore. But when was the last time you heard a Democrat complain about that? And you won't. Because it's just not. Maybe every once in a while, but they got over it. Republicans will get over it. The whole storming of the Capitol thing, right? That was a joke. That's why I keep saying it's hilarious when they call it, the insurrectionists that stormed the Capitol. Because it was come on. That was not an insurrection. It was a rowdy protest. That's it. And that's all they had, And those guys are all getting fucking raided too, along with anyone who says mean things on the internet. And what's the pushback? None. Amazon changes a fucking logo because leftists hysterically think it looks too much like a Hitler mustache. They're in control. You're the subverter. You don't have any kind of institutional support. And look, you won't in the foreseeable future. Really, and look, now that we've described that, and then what, right? So what? What do we do? You just, look, there's lots of groups that lead happy, healthy, successful lives within a society that views them negatively. Right? This is no longer our country, it's now our host country. We are a people within a host country. So what we can do, because that's why another reason why doing all this GOP infiltration, vote our way out of it shit is bad too, because it stops you from looking at some reasonable things you can do to be happy and successful with the reality included in the equation that you've lost power. If you keep walking down the yellow brick road of delusion, or the white brick road, I guess, of delusion, that somehow you're going to turn it all around and all this other stuff, you're not going to do what you should be doing. And that is on a local level, in small ways, trying to build your own community that does practice nepotism with other people within your group. And with the understanding that, we're the outsiders. So we have to help each other because we're now the outsiders. That's just the way it is. That's fine. You know, there are certain groups that, one in particular, where that's well, I mean, Steven Spielberg's family, right? When they came here 100 years ago, they were the outsiders. Right? But through extreme in-group preference and nepotism, they overcame that. And look, now they're calling a lot of the shots, aren't they? Was it 75% of Biden's cabinet is Jewish? I mean, that would be fucking unheard of 100 years ago, which isn't as long as you think. That's like 2 people's lifetimes, maybe one. I mean, I'm sure like there's people that were alive. Well, maybe not in 1915. Maybe there's maybe like a couple people. I don't know. But you know, it's not as long as you might think. But it's longer than. It's longer than your lifetime, most likely, right? So yeah, you can slowly and steadily get a foothold, but like, look, population-wise, let's just use the Jews as an example, right? So they came here, and demographically, is the United States now Jewish? No, I mean it's 2% Jewish, right? So demographically, you can't just take over an area as quickly as you can take over using, extreme in-group preference, nepotism, and I would even say extreme negative out-group preference to some degree, right? In a degree that doesn't get you in trouble. And, eventually you'll have influence again. Eventually. This is like a generational thing. And I think we're probably not going to get to that point. I think something else is going to happen before that, right? I think we're going to get to because white people don't have these things. Right? White people don't have in-group preference. That probably out of every group, they've probably got the lowest in-group preference. So the chances of them suddenly becoming this. So in the macro, we're fucked. In the micro, though, because you don't live in the macro. You live in the micro. All these news stories we just went over, they might come into your micro. I mean, especially me, right? The FBI could throw a flashbang through my fucking window. It's quite possible. So yeah, you got to know about this stuff because it could enter your micro. But today, what'd you do today? Yeah, a bunch of stuff that wasn't affected by this stuff, right? So, I mean, you can still be happy in the micro. You can still have a happy, successful life and work on building communities that are going to lay the groundwork for people in the future. But you're not turning this around. The demographics, especially, it's like I said, without something dramatic and substantial, you're not changing that. You're not turning that around. Someone says, we retook Spain, we can retake America. Yeah, well, not likely. Not likely. Is white lack of in-group preference engineered or natural? It's probably both. I mean, there's people there's people that have studied this more than I have. But I mean, it's obviously engineered at every turn. Right? You can see it in every single fucking anything, like movie, TV show, commercial, magazine ad, song. I mean, where is there any pro-white in-group preference propaganda that even exists? No. I mean, of course not. So absolutely it's engineered, but I think that the medium they had to work with, the Caucasian brain, was already kind of susceptible to that. Because even now, because all that stuff's going on, right? And yet somehow every other group in America that has all the same propaganda going on, they're still very high in-group preference. It just seems like the white people are the one that have really fucking, swallowed that pill. Why are they forcing vaccines? What do I think is in them? I don't know. Well, mRNA's in them. And even Mark Zuckerberg on that leaked stream said, fuck that noise. We don't know what that actually ends up doing to anyone long term. But it changes your fucking DNA. I'm not taking something that changes my DNA. I don't even care. Because here's the thing is, again, long term, short term, it might not do anything, right? Long term, it could be a fucking disaster. And there's 0 long-term studies on it. And I don't want my fucking DNA changed by something that is in some mystery sauce that hasn't been tested. But especially that's developed and produced by society where hatred of me is mainstream. Why would I want to take a vaccine produced by a group where the mainstream feeling is that I'm bad? Why would I want to inject myself with anything that group came up with? I don't give a fuck what it's meant to do. I'm not going to put anything in my body that people that hate me made. You'd have to be insane. Alt-Hype talked about the uniqueness of white people in his video, The European Revolution. Yeah, he does good stuff. I don't know if I've seen that one or not. White genetic predisposition to being a race traitor and cuck is being called the people most affected by anti-white policies are the white liberals in the cities. Nearly all white people killed in the summer riots were BLM supporters. Also, white liberals have no kids. Yeah, I mean, no, they embrace it. A lot of whites embrace this shit. A lot of white people hate you. It's... I don't know what to tell you. Look, I'm not the one that's making this a reality. Like, don't get mad at me. I'm just pointing it out. Like, that's fundamentally why you're not turning this around. Part of this is built into the hardware. And now, look, in a way, like you just said, they're not having kids. So are there some selection pressures at work here that could possibly down the road change things? Yeah, but this is not a in your lifetime kind of a thing. So you just got to know that, and you still got to live, right? You still got to be happy. So you just have to know that that's the constraints you're working under. That's the reality that you live in. You can still do that. I'll tell you what, you get a lot less nervous about this shit if you just prepare. Live a life to where the system could impose sanctions on you, right? There's some things you can't prepare for, but try to make your life as immune to tyranny as possible. And then a lot of this stuff's not going to stress you out. It doesn't stress me out. It really doesn't. You think I walk around all day just thinking about this shit? I don't. You know what I thought about today was planting cactuses. Like today, what I did today was I've got like a shitty greenhouse that I had to put up because I had a bunch of plants that were, I think, probably still too fragile to survive the cold of the winter. And so I had this like, shitty little tent of a greenhouse that I put a bunch of cactuses in. So I could wait till spring, which is basically now here, to plant them. And that's what I did today. And I didn't think about demographic replacement once. And I didn't think about the deep state once. And I didn't think about, BLM or the, the FBI kicking down my door. Actually, I did think about that after I read the the story about Gypsy. But again, same thing. I've prepared for that too. If they kick down my door, I'm not, like I'm not a felon. If I was a felon, I wouldn't have a gun, right? So you can prepare for these things. And if all your ducks are in a row, then you're good to go. You don't sit there and stress out about it. If you're stressed out about it, there's probably things in your life that you need to fix. It's probably because you feel an existential threat because you are vulnerable in some way that you could fix. It's not like a quick thing or an easy thing to fix. And in fact, in a way, it's something you're always doing, right? It's not something like, oh, I'm going to do these like 5 things and now tyranny will never affect me. No. I mean, you can do like these 100 things and tyranny won't affect you as much, but you're always going to have to be paying attention to what the hell's going on and always adjusting your preparations, always adjusting your plans, your contingency plans, your everything. Perfect example. I mean, there's a lot of people in Texas, right, that probably never thought that they'd have to prepare for like a fucking blizzard or something like that. And look, they might not have to ever again. But you'd be crazy if you lived in Texas to not, or in one of the affected areas, to not like learn from that experience and make sure that if that happened again, you'd be good to go. And then you don't have to worry about it as much. Right? I mean, that's part of why. Look, I'll tell you, I can relate. For those of you who are maybe a little high anxiety, because, I mean, look, I get it. There's reasons to have anxiety, right? But that was part of why I did like the extreme thing and went out to the desert to do the bunker thing. Because when I lived in the city, and especially the part of the city that I lived in, where diversity was all around me, where anti-white hatred was all around me, I felt a lot of anxiety about that shit. And it started to become like a safety issue. And at that point, let me get this pedo shit off my screen. At that point, I decided, you know what? I gotta do something about this. Because if they come after me financially, which they did eventually, how am I going to pay rent? Like that was even stuff like that, right? And like I said, the neighborhood that I lived in, I was getting demographically replaced in the neighborhood that I lived in. And it started to be a safety issue. Where, in fact, some of the BLM rioting happened like a block away from my old apartment. And so, there you go. You can do things. You can do things that insulate you from it, and work on laying the groundwork for the next generation, and preparing them. Just think of all the ways, all the bullshit that you had to unlearn, and raise kids that don't have to unlearn all that. Raise kids that don't get into their 30s or whatever, and then realize, oh shit, you mean the whole way that I've been viewing the world for like my entire life is a lie. No, start them out and give them like a don't let the state educate them, and don't feel like, oh, I want to preserve their childhood, I want to keep them innocent. The world's not an innocent place. You're just making them vulnerable and ignorant. So just raise the next generation up to not have to unlearn all that bullshit. That's I mean, because they're going to learn one way or the other. Either you're going to teach them or they're going to find out on their own. And usually that's not a nice way to find out. Someone said homeschooling is illegal where I live. Well, I don't know where you live, but I don't know. I wouldn't let the kids educate, or the state educate my kids. That's all I'm saying. And look, if for whatever crazy reason that you have no control over that, which I refuse to believe you can't find a way, then I would supplement it. Just be like, all right, now that you're back home from lying school, here's what's really going on. But don't let them be programmed, because like I said, if you don't tell them, they're going to find out anyway. And they're going to find out in a way that might be the last thing they learn. One thing Jordan Peterson said that I strongly agree with, and that I'm sure Alt Hype would agree with, is get your kids to learn statistics. That is a great way to make them less likely to become shitlibs. Oh, yeah, but raise reasonable, rational kids. Hey, Devin, a bit of unrelated to the topic, but would you play Bloodthesium by RDT for the outro? I don't know what that is. Homeschool is the way. Just make sure your kids get social interaction too. Yeah, but that's not even, look, I mean, that's something you got to pay attention to also. When I went from being a good little Mormon boy to that kid running away from home and just being, like crazy pot smoking, purple haired juvenile delinquent, I learned that from socializing, That came from social interaction, if you will. I mean, some of that probably came from media and whatever, but a lot of that came from social interaction. Big reason you don't want your kids going to public schools is the state, but another big reason is the public. Not only are you not able to keep an eye on what the teachers are shoving down your kids' throats, you're not able to keep an eye on what the children of NPCs are filling the garbage they're putting into your kid's head. And in some ways, that's almost more dangerous, right? Because kids might not naturally want to conform to what the school is telling them, but they absolutely want to conform to what the kids are telling them. And look, I mean, do I have to bring up that? Let me bring this up. Where is it at? Yeah, so obviously some of this is caused by, educators and the media and whatever. But look, a lot of this right here, a lot of that's peer pressure. A lot of that's trying to be cool and be accepted. I mean, is that the public you want your kids mingling with? It's like I said, when I went to high school, 0 people were openly gay. Because the societal immune system of bullying was still very much alive. Well, this is what societal AIDS looks like. So, and there's all these, look, I've talked to parents and they're all very confident. Well, not my kid. My kid will never end up like that. I make sure that I talk to my kid and, they'll never have a tranny kid. If your kid ends up being trans, you failed as a parent. Look, there's some truth to that, right? But, it's peer pressure is a powerful thing. And kids wanting to be accepted by the group is a powerful thing, especially if your kid's like kind of average. And look, just, speaking of learning statistics, average, a lot of people have average kids. And if your kid's not particularly, like stand out, not super bright, and there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying, if your kid's kind of average, he's going to be more susceptible to the NPC programming. I mean, fuck, what if your kid doesn't have an inner voice? You might not be able to do anything about that. Although I was thinking about that the other day. I think that one of the reasons why I developed an inner voice that maybe is so active is I read a lot as a kid. Like a lot. And when you read, or at least when I read, and I have to imagine that this is how it happens for most people. When you read, you're basically, reading it in your head. Like your inner voice is having to vocalize the words you're reading. So that might be something that might be a way to combat it in your kids, is make sure they read a lot. But yeah, I mean, like it's not just the teachers you want to keep away from your kids. Most Gen Z that are LGBT are bi because it's cool. Well, that's my whole point. If they're talking to someone else. Homeschool is good, but I think the degenerate life you had as a young adult is not an inherently bad thing. I know for myself, it led me to similar conclusions as you. It also has allowed me to defend myself against such evils now. Kids need some exposure. No, I'm not saying you raise kids like in a fucking bubble. You don't want a bubble boy. But no, I would disagree. I wish I didn't have to learn. The reason I had to learn all that shit the hard way is my parents didn't teach it to me. The reason we had to go to the school of hard knocks, because it sounds like from what you're saying, you did the same kind of stuff, is because your parents didn't teach it to you. It's not that you learned it, that was the only way to learn it. There's other ways to learn this shit. Like you don't have to learn about the value of money the only way to learn it is if you go bankrupt. The only way to learn not to touch the hot stove is to like stick your hand in the fire. No, you can just learn it that fire's hot and then never stick your hand in the fire. Now there's some things that are gonna look, kids aren't perfect. Kids are gonna make mistakes, and hopefully they're gonna learn from them and stuff like that. And like I say, you don't want to raise your kid wrapped in bubble wrap. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying you keep your kid in a cave or like locked in the basement or something like that. I'm just saying you don't want them to go to a public school. There's other places that there where there's community, and look, they're going to have exposure to kids that are going to have peer pressure, and kids are kids, right? Even when I was at like some of the more delinquent things I did were with other Mormon kids on a scout trip, right? Like one of the first times I got hammered was getting drunk on a Boy Scout camp out in the snow. Just drinking. I think we were drinking. It was Hot Damn, I think it was called, which is just like this awful sugary cinnamony. Like kind of like, I guess, Goldschlager, if they still have. I don't know anymore what drinks are available, but. No, but like that was with Mormon kids. So yeah, you're never going to insulate them 100% from every evil, and maybe you shouldn't even want to, right? But there were way easier ways I could have learned the things I learned by going to the School of Hard Knocks, and I would have been way more successful had I learned those things early on. And not had to learn them by touching the hot stove, grabbing the sharp knife, sticking my finger in the electrical outlet. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to just go around hurting yourself to learn things. It's just that's what happens when you're not taught. I mean, fuck, my dad didn't even teach me how to shave. Speaking of hurting yourself, learning things. Let's stay here. I look at myself and my siblings, and any variation in levels of degeneracy seems to be due to kinds of people we ended up hanging out with by chance. It wasn't by chance, though. I mean, your parents had some control over that. And look, it's a chicken and the egg thing, too. You could say, well, did I turn out bad because I was with the bad crowd, or did I go with the bad crowd because that's what I was attracted to? You know what I mean? Like, but I'm just saying, and you look at, like I said, you're not going to be able to shield your kids from every little thing. I'm just saying, public school is a fucking mess now. Public school is, I mean, look, it's totally normal for there to be a trans classmate. If, in fact, public school, if your kid, because it's cool for some reason, because it's in some song or movie he watched or whatever, on a whim, because he's a kid and he's fucking retarded, decides, I would get more attention and I'd be more popular at this school if I chop my fucking dick off. And they tell like a school counselor they want to chop their fucking dick off. You might not have a say in that. And you can try to say that, whoa, those parents failed that have kids like that. Well, I got more news for you. Sometimes parents fail. Well, are you the perfect parent? You're just going to do a flawless job? You're not going to fuck something up on accident? And like I said, you won't have a say. If you're a retarded kid, because kids are retarded and very impressionable, they get it in their head, they want to chop their fucking dick off, you might not have a say in that. And like it's totally changed. Like I wish I would have been homeschooled. And I went to school, like I said, in a school where there were 0 openly gay kids. Now, there was other shitty things, right? That are, some of which are probably, some are actually probably better today. Like, it was probably way more violent. I don't know. Maybe that's not better. I don't know. We didn't have fucking classmates chopping their dicks off, all right? Like, it was weird if, like, Oh, did you hear what happened? Janie got pregnant. Like that almost, I mean, it happened like, I think like 2 girls out of like 2,000 kids. And pretty much no one had abortions. And if they did, they certainly didn't brag about it. They didn't talk about it. It was like a shameful thing, you know? And it was still, I still wish I'd been homeschooled and insulated from some of the other bullshit. And now it's like, look at those numbers. You know, Gen Z likes to talk shit about boomers. Well, it turns out they're 8 times gayer than boomers. Okay? They're 8 times gayer than boomers and twice as gay as millennials. Almost twice. And that number, you know, Gen A or whatever they do next, that number is going to be probably like 30% or something fucked up like that. All right, let's take a look here. Two more generations and they'll be majority. Yeah, and look, and that, see, you got to understand that's ultimately what they want. They don't, in fact, they don't want there to be like a gay and straight, right? They want it to just be everyone just, there's no standard. And in the same way that, you know, white was the standard, you know, the white primacy, right? In the same way that's gone, you know, straight primacy will be gone. I mean, it's changing right now. 16% of Gen Z. Probably 30% of Gen, like, I don't know if you're looking at this. Like, again, zoom the graph out. Traditionalists, I don't know, never heard that term, but whatever. Age 75 and older. 1.3%. See, that's ages 75 and older. So, not that long ago. In the big scheme of things, not that long ago. Right? If you zoom the graph out, it's not a big part of the graph. And then 50 years later, 16% almost. So almost a factor of, you know, like 16 times. I mean, it's going in one direction here. And like I said, they will attack straight supremacy. And again, they'll be talking about straight primacy. I mean, they're doing it now. I mean, they're doing it now. I mean, that fucking tranny that Biden put in his administration, that's part of that. That's normalizing it. It's what they want. They don't want it to be something with a label to it. They don't want it to be like, oh, he's gay. No, it should just be. It's like there's not like certain words for people who like Mexican food, right? Some people like Mexican food. Some people like Italian food. Some people like, burgers, whatever. But there's not like a word for that. It's not a classification. It's not something that ever even comes up. And it's not something that's controversial. And they want to make sexuality the same thing as that. They want it to be on the same level as the kind of food you like. And they want it to be just as relevant to day-to-day conversation, where it's not scandalous or weird, any more strange that Sid likes to have sex with children than it is that Bill likes to eat mashed potatoes. That's where this is going. This is what So it doesn't matter that they want it. They don't want that the word kink. They want that gone. That's why that number is going up every single year. In fact, think of it this way. Like some guy in chat was like, well, that's just because Zoomers, it's cool to be bi, so they're just saying they're bi. Well, I mean, like, look, how many of the, I guess if you use their terminology here, traditionalists would say about their boomer kids, oh, it's just a phase. It's just a phase. The civil rights hippie shit, it's just a phase. They're just trying to be cool. Yeah, look where that went. This isn't going away. It's only going to go away, and like I was saying earlier, the Republicans went from wanting to amend the Constitution to ban gay marriage 15 years ago, not that long ago. Not that long ago. 15 years ago. And now 16% of Zoomers are gay. And just like the Republicans, rather than trying to fight the immigration, decided, oh, we need to find out how we can appeal to all these Mexicans. They're already doing that with fags. We need to figure out how we're going to appeal to this demographic because it's a growing demographic. And because the first priority of every organization is self-preservation, our priority is going to be to appeal to the future. And the future is brown and gay. It just is. Now, you can live in a society that's brown and gay and be successful and happy, but you're going to have to detach in certain ways. All right, here we go. Yeah, the Democrats are the real transphobes. They'll literally say that if they haven't already. 60 years of counterculture. Fucking Beatnik started it. Yeah, Pete Seeger. I have to look up. I'm not sure who that is. Are you familiar with the genetic disease Ashkenazi Jews have, where if they don't inbreed, they go full on crazy and schizo several generations down the line? Imagine God himself cursing the Chosenites. Well, are you talking about, what is it? Like T-Sax or whatever that is? I haven't heard of what you're talking about. Let's see here. Brown and gay in the USA. Yep. All right, guys. So I'm going to wrap things up here. In terms of the movie stuff, like I said, I'm going to be going over those emails over the next few days now that I feel like that stream's been out long enough and the call for people to write in has been out long enough. And so I'll be getting back to people over the next few days and we'll start figuring out how to do this. To be honest, I'm not even sure how to get the ball rolling. So I'm just going to get some of the, maybe I'll get an idea from one of your emails. So I'm going to be reading through all that stuff and then figuring out a process from there. Like I said, I'm just going to blunder through it. I'm just going to fucking roll with it and see what happens. And if it's a disaster, it's a disaster, whatever. But no more of this trying to figure out the perfect method to do it, because it's never going to happen. So I'm just going to fucking go for it and see what happens. And we can start working on our in-group preference. and make propaganda that promotes our in-group preference and that ridicules degeneracy and ridicules our enemies. And look, it's the movie we're going to make. It's going to be propaganda. That's okay. Every movie's propaganda. I'm sure someone will clip that out if the movie becomes popular. Look, he says it's propaganda. Shut the fuck up. Anyway, I'm gonna go do a hike into the desert. And in fact, I've been all suited up this whole time, like ready to go. And so I got a mountain to climb. But anyway, thanks for stopping by for the Insomnia stream. As always, well, make sure you follow me on Telegram. If you tell anyone and everyone that because I still have people that are on YouTube that don't know that because I still get my YouTube channel is not going to last forever. They're purging more channels even as we speak. But I don't post to it anymore. But I still get like these notifications every once in a while. Like, I don't know how it chooses. Every once in a while, like if someone comments, I get a notification, but it's not always. And I've seen notifications that pop up that say, like, oh, you haven't posted in a long time. It's like, where the fuck are you? Like we're living in a fucking cave. And so as soon as I'm able, because I'm not able right now, as soon as I'm able to upload to the channel again, unless they, take the channel down before this happens, I'll probably post a video that says, hey, go to Odyssey and BitChute. Kind of impressed with Odyssey. I'll have to use it more because I'm still new at it and I still don't have a good sense of how it works yet. But so far, so good. So far, so good. So I highly recommend you check out Odyssey. It seems to work better than BitChute. Certainly from my like it, the encoding always works. It's not slow. It's instantly up in most cases. So it certainly from a creator's standpoint, Odyssey seems to be better. But it also, like, the interface just looks better. I would recommend checking it out. And besides BitChute, like, look, I don't know why this happened, but the trending page is like all QAnon boomer shit. I'm starting to think BitChute is becoming like a boomer hangout. So anyway, wish me luck. Hope, pray that the FBI doesn't come in and flash bang my cat and fucking step on its face and rip my place apart looking for something bad or, whatever. And we'll talk again soon. For Blackpilled, I am, of course... Whoa. I forgot to play something. All right, I'm not going to do any commentary on it really, but I forgot. God, I can't believe I forgot to do that. I forgot to play... okay, so... We all know that Trump was a big disaster, right? And that and that simping for Trump, especially in 2021, it's either you're a grifter or you're a simp. Straight up. That's it. If you're still simping, if you still have Trump's dick in your mouth in 2021, I don't know what to tell you. Because even Alex Jones is tired of Trump.
Part of me, the selfish part, wishes I'd never met Donald Trump, wishes that I'd never met Roger Stone, because unlike previous things I'd done that were game-changing, those were just time-space continuum reflections of the third big change I was going to be involved in, and that was bringing Donald John Trump into Austin. So I'm going to say that again. I said Austin into office. Because this is, you guys are actually really good questions. This is going to be a really good thing, but I'm going to say it again in a minute. Let's drink some of this Armani. I'll try to say it. Because it's the truth, and I'm just going to say it, that I wish I never would have fucking met Trump. I wish it never would have happened. And it's not that the attacks that I've been through. I'm so sick of fucking Donald Trump, man. God, I'm fucking sick of him. And I'm not doing this because it's like I'm kissing his fucking ass. You know, it's just like I'm sick of it.
So there you go. All right. For Blackpilled, I am Devin Stan.
Felon, gangster, mafiotic, negroidic, the Black Frank Gelada, a gangster judge, therefore unprosecutable, the blackish, menial, negroidic in appearance and demeanor, felon, vicious, parroting puppet, ex-district attorney, Nassau County, and watch my Frankenstein eyesight television playback of this felonious, lowly, sodomistic display by the felon, sodomist Judge William Sullivan and his lowly felon slut wife during my trial in Nassau County.